I think you ought to know. That Men's Radio. The place where men and women really speak. Oh man, what a show. It's Men's Radio. This crazy show is on 3 times a week. Now Russ and Phil are there to help with all your cares. We laugh, we cry, we talk like grown-ups do. But if you're sad and low, it won't cost you no dough. Men's Radio, that's the place for you. With Russ Kane and Phil Dave.
So good.
Can't wait to see
So
him
good they
tomorrow
played
morning.
it twice.
What? Yeah, I know.
So-
Can't wait to see him tomorrow morning, to be honest with you. Cannot wait. It's Mr. Ray Gelato there. Okie dokie, artichoke. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, well, let's go. There we are. Francine Warner. Yay! I never know what those things mean, but okay, we'll go with it. Phil Dave, how are you?
I am perfectly well, thank you, Mr. Kane. How are you?
Yeah, frantic, just crazy busy. Out of Houston into Guildford, not half pop pickers, and she's outside her mum's bowls club. All right, it's Julie Voice and the bowls team, and my mum's in the pub, number 3 in the charts this week. Should we get on? We've got a packed show. As you may know, he proved really popular last time. God knows why. I mean, I've met him. I've been to the theatre with him. It is our very own.
Oh, that's funny. Because he's quite into the theatre, isn't he?
Oh, he hardly ever goes. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, theatre critic extraordinaire. That is his job. Mr. Jonathan Baz joins us.
Hey, good afternoon. Nice to be with you again. And thank you very much for that lovely introduction, Russ.
Well, I've got we can do.
I've got a few shows to talk about, and I'm going to kick off with the most recent show. In fact, I saw it only last night at a star-studded celebrity press night. It was the SpongeBob musical. And
oh dear.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Bye, everybody. I've just remembered I need a coffee. See ya.
Well,
he lives
under high expectations.
Hang on. Let me see if I can get it right, Jonathan. Hang on. He lives in a pineapple that's under the sea. SpongeBob SquarePants.
I'll tell you something, Russ. If they had you on stage, it might possibly be an improvement.
Bloody Christ, was it rubbish?
Well, it's been for the last few decades. To be fair and credit where it's due, it's been.
And we're Jews.
It's been a 10-minute or so cartoon series, each episode approximately 10 minutes on Nickelodeon. It's been going for a modest number of decades now. It's been made into a feature film, and its strength, and to be fair, SpongeBob has many strengths, is that its humor has played out to children and to adults. It's a little bit anarchic, it's very satirical, it's very well written, and it's very well observed. That, however, is the TV cartoon that Nickelodeon have developed very well over the years. On stage, and when you make any translation from screen to stage, you've really got to know what you're doing. Some shows pull it off marvelously, and maybe in the future we'll talk about Back to the Future, which has done just that. But the SpongeBob musical it's tedious. There are a couple of people who play minor characters in the series who are absolutely brilliant on stage. There's a 4-legged squid that tap dances. There's a very capitalist crab, Eugene Krabs, and he is equally brilliant. And a young woman playing a spectacular squirrel. But I have to say...
And the squirrel, what I love in the show, in the cartoon, because my twins, now 25, absolutely loved it, as did I, and I still occasionally watch it to cheer myself up, which I need right now, is the squirrel wears a diving helmet, which is hilarious because nobody else does. But the squirrel who lives under the sea wears a transparent diving helmet.
The humor of the cartoon is brilliant. And as you say, Russ, it played to you and it played to your kids as they were growing up. Likewise, I've got to be honest, seeing it on stage as it stands, it's boring, and it's not. Well, so whilst this is a bit of a roundup of some theatre, that's probably one to avoid.
And just so we can thoroughly avoid it, Mr. Theatre Critic, which theatre is it on?
It's playing at the Queen Elizabeth Hall on the South Bank.
Oh,
and it's there through August. Kids will enjoy bits of it, but 2 hours is a long time, even for them.
Let me ask you this, because it seems to me it's fallen between two stools. If you do a kids show,
it's very unpleasant.
Bloody hurts your nuts as well. When you do a kids show, it should just be for kids. And don't try and do the sophisticated adult stuff, because you can get that in panto and that's fine. And some of it will go over the kids' heads. But if it's SpongeBob, you either want it to be really satirical and funny for adults and kids will or won't get it, or do it all for kids and don't throw in the ad. But don't try and do both unless you're really, really clever at your scripting.
Russ, I think you're absolutely right. It can work with that caveat if the writer and the performers are really, really clever. Pantomime, you've got your own experience of pantomime. I've seen family members in performing pantomime. Done well, that will have children and adults rolling in the aisles. But it takes a craft and it's a skill. It is possible to entertain both in the same show, but it ain't easy. And I've got to be honest, right now at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, it's not happening.
Can I just answer one of our wonderful viewers? Graham Pack says, it's my birthday on Sunday. Happy birthday for Sunday. We've got tickets for A Little Life tomorrow afternoon.
What?
Ross, would you like my ticket? Graham, I would rather hammer a 6-inch masonry nail into my left eye socket than sit through that unbridled garbage. But thank you. Worst thing I've ever
can I just say
in my life.
Can I just say, Graham Pack, snap.
Worst thing I've ever seen.
No.
I'm your
saying
birthday?
On Sunday.
Is it? Where are you taking us? Where are you taking me and Chantal and Jonathan and all the listeners all over the world? Where do you want us to?
Absolutely, massive old party.
Okay, well, we're looking forward.
I'll let you know when.
All right, so SpongeBob, our theatre critic extraordinaire says, suddenly I'm David Jacobs. What did you think, hit or miss? All right, next up.
Or something very similar.
This one, next up, it's also, this one's not for children. And it's got one more month to run in the West End at the Gielgud Theatre on Shaftesbury Avenue. And it's Arthur Miller's The Crucible. This was put on by the National Theatre last year. And it was a remarkable revival. I have to say, was not for, whilst I knew of The Crucible, I'd never seen it before last year. It stunned me last year. And when it reopened the Gielgud a month or so ago, blew me away again. The play briefly was written by Arthur Miller in the 1950s, and it was a comment on his own experience of McCarthyism, where he got dragged before the House Un-American Activities Committee. Are you a communist? Have you ever been in the Communist Party? Do you know any communists, etc., etc.? It was a witch hunt within American society to dig out communists, and Miller wrote The Crucible literally about the original witch hunt, which happened in the late 1600s back in Massachusetts, when, for a variety of reasons, far too complex to go into here, but largely covering over all aspects of lust and adultery that had gone on in a small town, kids blamed their antics on witchcraft. The puritanical leaders of the community seized upon this. The kids couldn't get out of a lie that grew bigger and bigger and bigger, and started naming and testifying that they'd seen various adults dancing with the devil, that various elderly people in the community were witches. In fact, not even that old. Various adults in the community were witches. There were court cases, there were trials, and incredibly 19 people were hanged by the state for being witches. Eventually, they were pardoned 20 years later, all a little bit too late.
How did that work out for them?
Well, that worked out great. That's okay. That was good.
It's a terrible stain on American history. Then, a few hundred years ago, McCarthyism was a terrible stain on American history now. In the 1950s. And of course, where The Crucible speaks to us today is our own experience of culture wars and cancel culture and mob think that's going on at the moment. Now, I'm not going to get partisan and support any particular side of the culture wars that are raging.
Go on.
Come on, this is Men's radio station. We don't hang about here. Come on.
No. I'm gonna have that. I'm gonna have on air at least. I'm gonna have that fence post well and truly wedged up somewhere where the sun's not shining. But where the play is brilliant is that it absolutely highlights the power, and in this instance, the terrifying, murderous power of cancel culture, of mobthink, of groupthink, and of the terrible consequences that befell people who were brave enough to speak out and say this is all a load of cobblers, witchcraft, that wasn't the language of the 17th century, witches don't exist, etc. And unless people were prepared to toe the line that was being said, it was imprisonment or ultimately execution. The play tells this story brilliantly, movingly. There's a stunning performance from Brian Gleeson as the lead actor, John Proctor, who himself is a flawed person. He's not a perfect man by any means. And that's another one of Miller's strengths, because when he writes, he gets under the skin of people. He gets under the skin of humanity, flaws and all. But Proctor is ultimately a brave hero, as is his wife. And the story and the way this plays out is incredibly moving and very well argued. Also comes with a fascinating stage design, a woman called S. Devlin, and you may remember that name because she was the designer of the football play that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, Dear England. She really is a genius at the way she sets up her stages. And that's The Crucible. It's playing at the Gielgud, and it is playing, as I say, until about September the 2nd. Go and see it. It's 3 hours of theatre. I thought I'd find 3 hours challenging. I have to say I was hooked throughout.
Wow, praise from you indeed. I've seen the posters because I'm in Soho all the time, and I see the posters there, and the posters look very modern. It is very timely, Jonathan, this cancel. Even today, a dear friend of mine, Charmaine Davis, who occasionally I write with, and she's being trolled by other she's a professional comedian. That is her job. That is her industry. She's being trolled by, the wokerati for God knows what reason. And she's been polite and not named them. It couldn't be more timely. Bravo. That's The Crucible.
Indeed. And in fact, the fascinating thing about it is that, and to do with art, is people will come away from that play either of one political sentiment or possibly of another political sentiment. And there's something in that play for everyone, notwithstanding whose opinions are actually right and wrong. And like I said, I'm not going to go up that path. But it really is art in its highest form, because there's a lot to take away from the play. Also, opening this week, but on for a relatively short 3 weeks, saw me heading down to Chichester again, which...
Had you done something wrong?
On an evening when there was an overtime ban on the railways, led to me, thankfully, being able to grab the last room in the local travel lodge. But the reason I was in town was to see the opening of Rock Follies. Phil, not sure if that's within your time frame.
He wasn't born. I hate to disappoint you, Baz Boy, but he was not even born. Which is another reason to hate Phil Dave, everybody.
Yes, I know, but at the same time, I don't really think any of us were really born around the time of Henry VIII, but it doesn't mean we can't appreciate Six, the musical.
No, I was. Henry and I went way back.
So to you, Russell, a Nickelodeon is something very different. Nickelodeon was actually a way of entertaining yourself at the arcade.
Well, that was me. That was it. Me, Oppenheimer, Einstein, all of us just used to hang out playing slot machines. Right. Okay. So you're down in Rock Follies, yes, which you very kindly, I have to say, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I wasn't crazy about it when I saw it when I was, I don't know how old I was. And I didn't fancy dragging down to Chichester. Thank God I didn't, because I'd have to share a room with you in the travel lodge, which would have been, well, entertaining. Who's in it? Rula Lenska.
No, Rula Lenska was in the audience.
Oh, Christ, was she?
Rula Lenska was in the audience. You may remember in the TV
she's so nice. We did Panto together, and she became pals, and she's lovely woman. Very fond of her.
Also in the audience was Howard Schuman, who wrote the music and who wrote the scripts for the TV series. Okay. And in it now, the three women who are the women who get flung together by fate to form a girl band. Remember, Rock Follies came about long before Bananarama, even longer before the Spice Girls. And it was in its day, I think with its 12 episodes, certainly of the first series, stunning TV, brilliantly written, brilliantly performed, and with some great music. So here we see a TV series being translated onto the stage. The three performers who are playing these three singers are Zizi Strallen, Carly Borden, and Angela Marie Hurst. Zizi Strallen in particular comes from a long line of outstanding musical theatre performers in her family, and most recently seen on the West End as Mary Poppins at the Prince Edward opposite Charlie Stemp, of whom we spoke last week. The singing and the music, I have to say, is knockout. It's a good band. There's a 4 or 5 piece band on stage with them. The girls sing and take the roof off the place. The band plays brilliantly, and Howard Schuman's tunes, and Andy Mackay, of course, is a co-writer. Andy Mackay, he of Roxy Music. So the music is terrific. As a play, as an actual musical that lasts for 2.5 hours, it's not the easiest of conversions, taking 12 one-hour episodes and squeezing them into somewhere between 2 and 3 hours on stage. It means that a lot of the supporting characters become a little bit two-dimensional, a bit caricaturish, and as a story, it's a tiny bit crumbly. But notwithstanding that the story is a bit crumbly, the song and dance is brilliant. You just mentioned Six. It's the same choreographer who pulled Six together, who in this instance is working with a cast of half the size of leading ladies, albeit there are quite a few other people in the supporting company. And it's not a must-see, but I would say it's worth seeing. It's imaginative new writing. It needs work if it's going to have any sort of future, because the second act is far too long and far too flaky. But these three women sing and dance. You won't see better performances in musical theatre at the moment. They're at the top of their game, and really recommended if you're looking for a pleasant night out, a good night out in the theatre in that part of the world.
If people, if the producers and everybody else listen, not just to someone like you, but get other people in the audience saying the same thing, in other words, it needs editing, it needs polishing. Will they redo it? Can they amend as they go along, tighten it up?
I think the short answer to that is yes. If they think there's potential, if they think there's a market out there, and you've got to remember, you know, Rock Follies is already only going to appeal at its first cut to the people who are 50s and 60s plus, who remember what it was all about. It's a neat tribute to the 70s musically. I mean, I was stunned at one point in the evening. There was a scene where they're in the phone box, in different phone boxes, ringing back their loved ones at home. And the sound effect was that sound you heard when you pushed a 10p into a call box. Hard to replicate. I won't try and replicate it. But then the click and the whir as you shoved it in the machine, the attention to detail to get the 70s right is lovely. And
Travelodge Chichester, yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Well, I've got to be honest.
I love that. Graham, you're on fire, boy. You're on fire.
I love it. Of all the things that Jonathan's here to review, and it's the Travelodge in Chichester.
Well, I would say the Travelodge in Chichester, in comparison with having to deal with Southern Railways and 2 or 3 train changes between Chichester and Victoria close to midnight, I would say the Travelodge gets 5 stars by comparison.
Precisely. It is right up there with the Burj Al Arab.
It did a job. It was
you
clean.
Needed a bed, you got one.
Yeah, it was clean. It was warm. And I grabbed a shower in the morning. Yeah. So fantastic.
I used to practically live in Travelodges. I can't go and see anything about the music industry because it would make me physically ill again after my disgusting years in it. I'd rather swim through another sewer. Anyway, that's that. Rockfall is not for me. I wasn't crazy about it first time round, but it's just not for me. But bless you for asking me. I do appreciate it. And what else came across your purview?
Yes, finally, you'll be glad to hear. Finally,
no, this is very interesting. Don't say that. Don't put yourself down, please.
I went this week to the Arts Theatre, which is a small basement theatre in between Covent Garden and Soho, where the Choir of Man is playing. Choir of Man has been around for a small number of years now. I think it's actually toured certainly to the United States as well, having started in England, tours in the United States, elsewhere in the world, back now at the Arts Theatre. And it is a play, a musical, that's set in a pub. And in fact, before the show starts, the pub has a real working beer tap on it, and the audience are up on there milling around.
I believe they invite people up on the stage to the pub, don't they?
Correct. Well, through the show, before the show, everyone can broadly mill around on stage and buy a pint. During the show, it's a little bit pantomime-esque because people get called out and dragged on stage, only if they consent. No one's forced up on stage. And the show it's not so much a jukebox musical based upon the songs, for example, of ABBA or the Four Seasons or the Temptations, as we've seen. It's more of a playlist of brilliant songs from across a number of musical genres. And the theme of the show is the camaraderie and the friendship between the men. And it is a cast of men who are in this pub. It's a scripted show, but it's brilliantly rehearsed. It's very, very well put together. The choice of songs that these guys perform is quite inspiring. And for me, any show that can have in the same set list the Proclaimers' 500 Miles, Luther Vandross's Dance with My Father, and Queen's Somebody to Love, that's quite a set list. And if you then lob in Rupert Holmes' Escape, brackets, the Pina Colada song, which went down extremely well with an audience, I have to say, that was predominantly women who were a few years past their teens. It's probably the best way of describing it.
Nicely done, Jonathan. Nicely done.
It was a very, very lovely night at the theatre. And I've got to give a mention to a stunning performer, Ben Goff, who actually pulls off, and I'm going to talk about tap dancing routine again. He does a tap routine to Paul Simon's 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover that was just jaw-dropping. Sheer entertainment in the theatre, but coming also with quite a strong message. Because the play, and I said this in my review, we often hear about this phrase of toxic masculinity here, there, and everywhere in the media and in the world.
Oh, tell me about it. Russ and I are living proof of that.
So this play celebrated glorious masculinity. It celebrated friendship, and there is an appeal, a plea, a fundraiser from the stage to support the charity Calm, the campaign against living miserably, a charity that seeks actively to reduce suicide in the UK, 75% of which are committed by men. So I can assure you that undercurrent doesn't flow through the entire show by any means. But the show is very much about the strength of friendship, about the strength of men talking to each other, laughing, singing, sharing their stories, sharing their problems, sharing their celebrations, whatever it may be. But done over a pint with some lovely music. It's a fabulous night.
I had no idea, just judging from the posters, which I always see on the tube, I had no idea that's what it was about. The irony is that my business partner, Howard Jameson, and myself in conjunction with Penny Horner, our third partner, is, we've reached out to Calm on so many occasions, and you'd honestly think we were trying to sell them ice cream or something. It's very interesting. I totally support it. I love the idea and I love the theme. And I do think that the whole notion of toxic masculinity versus supportive masculinity is one that really needs to be described. But so many charities, and I will say this, it's slightly off piece, but forgive me, is if they didn't invent it, they don't want to know. And we've had this time and time and time again. And it's really, I'm not going to say depressing, it's just disappointing. It's disappointing when you're offering people a platform for nothing. And it's like, well, I don't think so. You're thinking, well, why not? We're all trying to do the same thing, which is why I've never understood there's more than one cancer charity. There should be, in my opinion, I've discussed this with many surgeons and specialists, there should be like one cancer charity. So all the funds, which is millions, is at least going. I don't know why there's different. It's not like Honda versus Ford versus Jaguar Land Rover. It's ridiculous. But anyway, that's just my personal beef. Jonathan, thank you so much.
A pleasure.
That was nothing short of marvelous. Nothing short of marvelous. That was great. Jonathan Baz, our wonderful theatre critic, you're terribly welcome to stay. Or I know you're a busy fellow, so if you need to pop away, whatever you prefer to do.
Russ, thank you. I'm going to pop away, but I'm going to say thank you very much, and I look forward to being with you again in a couple of weeks.
In 2 weeks'
Marvelous
time,
stuff.
Jonathan, always absolutely a pleasure. Great stuff. Thank you, Jonathan Baz. I love what he does. I think it's absolutely great. And as Françoise Pascal, who I will be speaking to, and you will be hearing in a few months, but I will be speaking to in about 45 minutes, past their teens. Very tactful, Jonathan Baz, indeed. Out of that, the only ones I would go and see is Choir of Man. That's just me. I'd go and see that. That sounds fun. I couldn't sit through the Crucible.
Although
I know it's
a
brilliant,
really curious
because I
part
hated
of me
my-
wants to go and see Mrs. Doubtfire the musical.
Oh God, no. I have no desire to see any of the things that were great. Like Back to the Future was great. I don't want to see. And I know the guy who's
Oh dear.
who's running the whole show, Dave. I don't want to. Well, there you go. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Mrs. Doubtfire. I don't want to see anything that was like a film or something. And they think, let's.
I have to tell you, I
know
know full well what
Really
you mean about Back to the Future, because I too was a little bit cynical about turning it into a musical. But having seen it, it was fantastically done.
Oh, you saw it? I'm
did
sure
see
the
it.
effects and everything were good. I don't. I'll be honest, I don't like musicals particularly. You said to me, Russ, you can never see another musical. I go, okay, I think I'll live. Say to me, you can never see another cheese board. Now we've got an issue. Now we've got a problem on our hands.
Yeah.
Say that you could never open another bottle of Malbec, and I'm seriously.
Oh my goodness me!
God,
Then you wouldn't stop. Then you wouldn't stop whining about it.
Yay! But I'd have to stop. Oh, I can't believe it. Should we introduce? Yeah, I know she's fainting there. She's back. She's been all over the world. She's been to Hollywood. She's been back from Hollywood. She's been to, I don't know where she's been. She's like the Judith Chalmers of television. Ladies and gentlemen,
Judith Chalmers was on television.
Oh yeah, I know. That was an absolutely shit reference. It didn't work at all. But you got the point. Kind of.
It's kind of like Wicker's World for 2023.
The point about that was,
hello world.
We'd never been anywhere. We hadn't seen these places. The world wasn't open to us. When somebody like Alan Wicker or David Attenborough in the 60s, late 50s and 60s, went to these places and showed us these things, it was a miracle. It was wonderful.
We feel like that with Chantal. She goes to all sorts of places. She goes to all sorts of places that you and I don't have access to.
I know. Yeah, I know. Like Wandsworth.
Wandsworth.
Look at you with your tan. I've been to your Wandsworth domain many, many times and had wonderful, wonderful evenings and staggered home. Now,
Well,
you
I'm
look
not in
so
Wandsworth today.
tanned. Look at you.
Oh,
That
no,
is
well,
a tan.
this is my North Wales suntan, Welsh rust.
Oh, right. Wow.
Welsh rust.
Welsh rust. Hello, look, you. I've been tan now, you see. Is it on Brown? Good day, Chantal Rickards.
How are you,
hang on.
boys?
Oh,
All the better for you saving the show. Thank you. How are you?
Yes, all the better for you coming on and adding some intelligence and smartness.
Happy to be here. I'm sorry I've been away for a couple of weeks. I feel
Well, it's
very bad.
outrageous. How dare you have life?
How dare you?
Well, this time last week I was
Sheer
actually
temerity.
in an aeroplane, so I physically couldn't have made it if I'd tried.
So you weren't on air, you were in air.
Yay!
No, I was
So
in air.
Chantal, did I get this right? You went to LA for, were you there for 24 hours?
2
for
days
this
or something?
awards?
Yeah,
2
no,
days.
30 hours.
Oh, 30
hours.
Gee.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's quite
how
a
did
long
you
way to go for
feel?
30 hours.
Just for a
Actually
coffee.
fine.
Just
No,
for a coffee
it's-
and to say hello to Charlie. How
It
did
was
you
completely
feel?
fine. No,
felt
absolutely
okay?
fine. Yeah, I went there
God.
and back so quickly that you don't get jet lag because you basically your brain and body
Amazing.
is-
Well, that's one way to avoid jet lag. I've ever heard it.
Just go there for 30 hours and come back home. How was your trip?
Yeah.
It's all right.
No, the trips were great. I did a couple of box sets, one on the way out and one on the way back, and it was completely fine. You know, all you have to do is sit there at the end of the day. Slightly
That's
uncomfortable, but you know,
Please
I always
explain
have.
why. Please explain.
No,
why
first
you
class
went,
has really
because it's a
gone downhill.
wonderful- Yeah, well,
As you know, Phil Dave, I have not travelled business class for 4 years. I gave it up 4 years ago to try and save the planet because my carbon footprint is much smaller in economy. So even though my company very kindly would allow me to go business class, I'm afraid I don't go business class anymore.
Let me tell
and never
you,
will.
if I won the lottery, I'd go by private.
Would you like me to go in your place? Because I'm less
would-
bothered about the carbon
I'm
footprint.
not,
I'm not going to lie.
I would not go business class. I would go. I would, you know,
Would
if
you?
I can't. I want to turn left on every walkway. I just want to turn left. Show me the bed and the fabulous. Hey,
No,
Greta,
I don't
look
turn
at
left
me.
anymore. No,
Oh,
giving
dear.
it up.
Oh
Yeah.
dear. You were someone
Afraid
to
so.
know once. Just remember that. You were someone to know. Now, not so. You
Some
went for a great
sound
cause.
advice for the ballot box there. I don't turn left anymore.
So you went for a wonderful cause, though, didn't you? Yeah.
I did. I went for the BAFTA Student Awards, which are always great fun. The kids are brilliant. They fly in from all over the world. The 9 finalists, we bring them in from all over the world. And there's a screening of all of their wonderful films on the first night, and then on the second night, there's an award show. And it was terribly good fun. And I got there in time with 5 minutes to spare for the screening on the Wednesday night. And the awards night was Thursday. I was back at the airport by 10:30 p.m. and on the plane home by 11:30 p.m. So it was worthwhile.
Before
I did quite
everything,
a lot.
just a minute. Hold your horses.
Good grief.
In case everybody thinks this is really impressive, when Chantal says, "Let's go to a screening," and I go, "Great," and she's round the corner and I'm round the corner, I have to keep the seat next to me reserved because there's going to be a delay. Never mind Los Angeles.
Well, look, I mean, you can't have a go at Chantal for keeping herself out of mischief. The fact that you've got time to go there and reserve the seat says a lot about your lifestyle, Mr. Kane.
It means that I'm actually, do you know what? I was once so late because I was at the Soho Whiskey Club thinking I had time and enjoying a particular Glenfarclas 15. And they held the screening back till I got there. How embarrassing was that?
Oh, dear.
Oh, I felt such a twerp. Anyway, there we are. Chantal was very, as you would expect, extremely gracious for my laxness. Anyway, what have you been watching as you've been flying around the world?
Completely fine. Completely fine.
You just explained that when trying to find the place, you turn left.
I'll give you all my air miles, Russ, because I'm feeling worse and worse and worse about using up the planet's resources.
Please, because I need to be out in Texas in October for 2 reasons. One, it'll be my birthday. 2, I want to see my son who's living in Texas, and I haven't seen him since January. But 3, far more important than that, kiss are playing in Austin, Texas. And if I can combine seeing my son, which would be, be all right, it would be great, and then seeing Kiss up the road from where he lives now in Austin, Texas, this would be
too funny. Are you serious about Kiss?
Oh, yeah.
Or are you
yeah, I'm serious.
Are you serious?
No, I'm absolutely serious. I would go to Austin, Texas. I want to go to Austin, Texas because I want to see my boy, right? My boy. Older than most of our viewers and listeners. But I want to see him and the family. But Kiss are just up the road.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's
okay, well, go for it.
Really...
Clearly a heavy rocker. I had no idea you were a heavy rocker.
Oh my God, yes, it's the only music I really like. Okay. That and Sinatra. I like that, but I love metal. Absolutely love
I'd love to hear that remix. Could you imagine?
I know, that's a weird
absolutely combo. I love no, I like all types of music apart from
just imagine his iPod now. These are crazy, come fly with me.
Loud. Oh, yeah, that Metallica, Motley Crue, all my favorite bands. I love them.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd go absolutely.
No wonder you have to keep asking. No wonder you get us to keep repeating ourselves. You can't hear us.
Well, that is not far from not far from the truth. Yeah, sometimes that is very true. Right. Never mind about Chris, because they're never playing again, and I miss them playing in London. So they're never playing.
That was a very expensive mistake, if you don't mind my saying.
Again. They've never played in Europe again. They're never going to play in Europe again. So they're going to finish.
Well, I hope you get a ticket. American tickets are quite expensive from memory.
They're insane. And my boy's he's looking into it when he can find the time. He has somewhat of a heavy duty job out there. I can't say what it is, but it's massive. I'm just like, what? You? What? I'm so supportive. And the ticket prices are bonkers.
Okay.
Yeah, crazy. Right, okie dokie.
Nights.
Anyway, well, I'll tell you what, I've seen a ton of very different things in the last couple of weeks. But I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of the ones that sort of bubbled up to the surface for me and were illuminating, interesting, exciting, and all for different reasons, really. But the first one is a 3-part documentary on Channel 4 called Evacuation. And I turned it on really by accident more than anything.
I'm so sorry. Do you know, for a split second there, I thought you meant a 3-part documentary about Channel 4. I'm so... Okay, right. Sorry, I'm with you now. Sorry.
No.
How was your earlier meeting? How was your meeting with the senior executives at your organisation? Did it go well?
It's not as well as I'd hoped.
Yes. You sitting there going, well, I'm a big fan of... and I'm proud to be here at GB News. Phil, wrong station.
I definitely did not say that.
Ooh, we need more information, Phil.
Anyway,
back to Evacuation. I watched it, sort of tuned into it by accident. It's actually an incredibly well-made documentary by a very good production company for Channel 4. And it's about the airlift out of Kabul, which was exactly 2 years ago. It was August 21. I can't believe that it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago already. Oh, my goodness me.
And we airlifted 15,000 people out of Kabul with, I think, 19 days notice. And it's one of those documentaries where they interview key players after the event, but they've basically interviewed, other than a couple of families, they've interviewed the military who were on the British military, who were on the ground doing the work, getting the people out, processing them, getting them out, the people flying the planes. And the characters are incredibly good. One of the things that really attracted me to it, and I thought I'd mention it, is because it talks of one of the women is a fantastic woman called Diana, who's a squadron leader. But she talks about the mental effects that it had on her. And you see lots of cutaways of her playing with a little stone in her hands, which she calls her PTSD stone, which she rubs. She said she picked it up on a beach in Cornwall, but she rubs it when her mind drifts back to the awfulness of Kabul and the terrible things that she witnessed, because it grounds her. It makes her remember where she is and that was then and this is now. I thought it was sort of an interesting trick potentially for other people who suffer from PTSD.
Well, but Chantal, isn't it a bit like rubber band therapy as well? So do you know when if you're trying to give up something or something like that, and you snap the rubber band to bring you back into the moment, into the here and now?
You're absolutely right. It must have the same effect.
I have one from I have one or two actually from Cuddy Cudsworth, who used to be on Men's Radio Station, sadly no longer, and his Monkey Mind Relaxation, and he sent me a couple of those things. And if I get like that, I just ping it, and it pings onto your wrist, and it brings you back into the moment and stops you dwelling on the crap from the past, which is an ongoing issue. But anyway, there we go.
Oh, well, very good. Maybe that's why worry beads are called worry beads. I'd never really thought about that before, but I know that everybody used to have worry
that's exactly
beads.
No, that's just because you keep losing them and you worry about where you've left them.
Anyway, it's a great...
I should get mine out.
Yeah. No, maybe you should.
I got some great worry beads in... Oh, stop it.
Oh, worry beads.
Eric and Eddie. I bought some fabulous worry beads. We went to Marrakesh, and they're really nice. And they do feel they've got a wonderful... I understand this lady with the stone from the beach, because the worry beads have a wonderful textural quality that's just terrific. Anyway, there we are.
Anyway, but it talks about the impact on the people, but it's basically the story of how they got the people out. Just the logistics of it is absolutely fascinating. How you airlift that many people out and who got left behind, and the extraordinary footage that they've got from the MOD, which really enhances what's going on, because the interviews themselves are very gentle. It's just the person talking to camera in a sort of, against a bare background, as it were. And you really understand what they were going through, because they then cut away to the awfulness of what these people had been seeing. I mean, absolutely fascinating. There's one shot that I've never seen before, and maybe was shown on the news, but I don't remember it at the time, where one of our jets takes off to go back to England with 500 people on board, with 20 Afghan men holding onto the wheels as it takes off.
I do remember that. I do remember that.
Well, I didn't remember it. I was really shocked when I saw that, because clearly there is an inevitability that you can't hang on. So the inevitable happens. And what on
earth did they think was going to happen?
Well, to be honest with you, I suspect when you're facing the might of the Taliban, then frankly anything's worth the risk.
Yeah. No, I mean it's sort of extraordinary.
Horrible.
But look out particularly for this woman, Diana, because she describes the squadron that she took as being like a bunch of sixth formers on a school trip. I mean, they knew nothing. Most of them had never been in any sort of war scenario before. And then they're suddenly thrown into the middle of Kabul, and they've got 19 days to, kick and scramble to get the thing sorted out. It's a really good documentary. It's incredibly well made. And just from the logistics point of view, it tells a great story. It doesn't really get into the politics and all of that sort of stuff, but it does make you feel really good about the military services, getting Brits and other people out of tricky situations and the awfulness they go through to do it.
Without spoiler alert, did they get... Did they get everyone that they... I'm going to be careful with my words because it'll sound terrible. That they needed to get out? Did they get all the British nationals out? I know it's very partisan. It's a partisan world.
Yeah. The documentary would suggest that people were left behind. So, yes. But since, I think it does say that since the Taliban came in 2 years ago, that 2.5 million people have fled Afghanistan to get away from the Taliban. So people have found other ways out quite clearly, because the initial airlift for us was just 15,000 people. But it's a great story.
There's always the argument. There's always the argument, isn't there? And it's very controversial.
Yeah.
That if the 2.5 million people went up against the Taliban, you could probably defeat them, because there ain't 2.5 million Taliban.
Yes, but then then those 2.5 million would need to be suitably armed. Do you know what I mean? They can't just pounce on them.
Well, I get that. It never seems to work, does it? I just don't understand how it goes back to the crucible and cancel culture. I don't understand how a relatively tiny minority just takes over. And it goes back to what Jonathan Baz, our theatre critic, was saying. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, there.
Anyway, but no, that's good. If you're going off on your holidays, download it. take it with you, pack it onto the iPad, and you'll have something to watch on when you're waiting in some departure lounge somewhere. But it's a good watch. I think it'll win awards when it comes to awards season. It should, because it's really well made. Anyway, I watched something else, which actually I think a lot of people have caught up on. It started actually a few weeks ago and has now come to an end on the BBC, called The Sixth Commandment. And do you know what the Sixth Commandment is, you two?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Sixth Commandment is thou shalt not forget the first 5.
Yeah, that's it.
Thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt go to Noshers.
Well, this is
I love the way that's number 6.
I was going to say, it's amazing how that got into rank 6.
Not the most important. Not the most important. No, leave it at number 6. What's the other one? Thou shalt.
I know.
There's some bullshit.
Maybe we should reorder.
Do you know what? Francois got it. Thou shalt not kill. She knew.
Yeah, thou shalt not kill.
Very good.
This series, which I'm going to shut up and let you talk about, I thought, well, I'll give it a go.
Yes. And
holy God. I binge watched it sort of in one night because I had to know what happened. If Timothy Spall, etc. Well, I'll let you talk about it. I was blown.
It's the most religious Russ has been for a long time.
Well, I'll just give a bit of background for the listeners so they know what you and I are chatting about. It's a 4-parter based on a true story about next door neighbours played by Timothy Spall and Anne Reid. And Tim Spall plays a character, Peter Farquhar, who had been a master at Stowe Public School, was gay but had never acted upon his sort of homosexual inclinations. And that's sort of part of the story. It's his vulnerability, if you like. And it's that vulnerability that gets abused by a church warden who basically sort of finagles his way into the life of the 2 characters played by Timothy Spall and Anne Reid, real life characters, as I've said, and effectively destroys their lives, completely and utterly destroys their lives. But what he does initially is to get them to change their wills in his favor. And this is clearly a very, very evil man. It went to court. There is a long court case. I'm not going to ruin it by telling you what happened at the end, because clearly, Russ, you now know. But I had vaguely read about it some time ago. And then when it suddenly appeared as a drama with rave reviews, everybody is just saying how marvelous it is, and probably the best thing that Timothy Spall has ever acted in. And actually, he's so brilliant in it that I thought, I better tune into this. It's a great 4-parter. Again, I think it's going to be something that come awards season, this is going to be up there with the best of BBC dramas. I think
it should walk it. It really should walk it. And 2 things out of this. At the very end, no spoilers, don't worry. At the very end, they show the real footage.
They do.
Of the man that Timothy Spall is portraying. And it's me and the dog. And I just turned to Ebony and went, oh my God. I mean, the movement.
Surely you said, oh my dog.
Well, that's just silly. You see, that's just silly. You've ruined a whole moment there. You've ruined a moment. Ruined it. Anyway, that's that. And
you say that, but I feel like I've probably lightened it a little. Yes.
I don't care. I don't care really what's going on in my world. Anyway, here's the thing. It's written by somebody I really admire and who I chat to on Twitter called Sarah Phelps.
Indeed.
Sarah Phelps is a little, sometimes controversial, but a really, really gifted writer. Oh my God, she's good. She did a very, very controversial reimagining of an Agatha Christie story, and some people were going raving mad because she was putting in the F word every now and then, and people go, that's not Agatha Christie, but it's like a reimagining of it, which I rather like, with a fantastic actor whose name's gone right out of my head and I can't remember. He's one of my favorite actors.
Well, I don't know which one it is.
The other thing about Sarah Phelps is it would appear she suffers from depression, and so here's a little thing. It's our kind of tribute to her from Men's Radio, is that I follow her on Twitter. We chit chat sometimes she answers, sometimes she doesn't. And at the time when the Sixth Commandment was released, it was only 2-3 weeks ago, and Twitter was going crazy with praise and praise, because it is that good.
Yeah.
And she was being very, very modest and thanking Timothy Spall, thanking Anne Reid and the rest of the cast and the director, you know, because it's a brilliant ensemble piece. And then the black dog came.
Oh, really?
And then the black dog came. And I've been writing to her and saying, yeah, I can relate to that. But what fascinated for me, and it's a slight digression, but it's key to what we try and do on Men's Radio, is that, and it fascinated me, there she is at the absolute apex. Everyone's going, this is a brilliant piece of work, universally praised. And you would think, that's great. And I so understood why the black dog came. I totally understood it. And I can't really put it into words.
What do you think triggered it then, Russ, for her?
It's the same way on a very little. I can't take praise. I can't take praise at all.
How interesting.
I just can't do that. If somebody's, I can't. And for example, if I did the one-man show, and when I finish the one-man show, I have to just kind of be myself, or you know, when I'm off, and people come up and they might say nice things or whatever. I can't deal with any of that. I can't take it at all.
Interesting.
And I feel very flat, even if it's been a huge smash.
Yeah.
I can't take it. And I just wonder, I'd love to.
It's almost like you don't believe what they're saying to you.
Yeah, well, I normally don't. That's why I have few close friends, and other people who try to be friends, I'm not interested because I don't trust you. But I just wonder, because she was right at the apex, and everybody, left, right, and center, and all her, other people in the industry, because it is a brilliant piece of writing, beautifully researched. And I just wondered if that triggered it, and I was so fascinated.
There's a podcast I listen to on the radio with Alistair Campbell, who people will remember as the Labour Party guru.
No, we remember him from Sexing Up the Dossier, is what we remember.
Well, okay. Well, whatever. But he
I can't forgive him for that.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. But he does talk a lot about mental health, and is very open about the fact that he's really struggled with his mental health. And actually, I was going to write into the podcast actually to ask him the question about the fact that now his podcast is, the number one political podcast in the country, and people are sort of looking at him in a different light and praising him in a way that he's never sort of put himself out there before to garner praise, if you like, that whether all of that praise had actually helped lift his spirits. But actually what you're suggesting is it might have the opposite effect. I don't know, and I haven't written to the show to ask him, but it's a fascinating idea.
I can't explain to you, Chantal and Phil and everybody, I can't explain why it has the opposite effect on me. The opposite. It's a weird thing. I can't explain it. It's a weird thing. Maybe that's why I spend a lot of time on my own writing, because that's okay. But it is that good. The show's called The Sixth Commandment.
It is.
Everything Chantal says, it's that, and even more. It's really, and if you don't sit there fuming,
it's really creepy, because when you realise what this guy Ben Field did it's extraordinary, but really.
Well, I've already downloaded the first episode so I can watch it on my journey home. So there you go.
Yeah. It's a little bit slow in places.
And you're driving.
My only criticism, but it is good. Anyway, so I watched another box set on the way back.
Can I just clarify? I'm not driving.
Very good. Watched another box set on the plane.
I'm cycling.
Whatever it was, which was something called The Girl from Plainville, which is on Channel 4. I think 4 episodes are out currently, and there are another 4 to come. Again, it's another true story. It does talk about suicide. Suicide is key to the story. So if that is something that destabilizes you in any way, don't watch this. But it is a series that a lot of people are talking about, because it's a really sort of an extraordinary story of 2 young Americans. Clearly, teenagers, hormones all over the place, mental instability, and the 2 of them together are really not good for each other. but it's the most extraordinary story. But there is a suicide that is central to the whole thing. So if that's something that's that you don't want to take on board, then don't look at it at all. But it's very interesting because it's a true story about two young people who were mentally unstable and very bad for each other.
And they met. They met.
They met. They became a couple.
I'm asking.
They became a couple, and he dies of suicide. But then the whole thing is unravelled as to how she has played a part in it, and it's a case that is extraordinary. I mean, people were blown away by this very what ended up being a crime. She committed a crime. So it's worth watching if you like stories of that nature, but it does delve deeply into mental instability. But it's still jolly good, and being praised by the critics here, there, and everywhere.
I'm so sorry about
the name of that. Sorry,
it's called The Girl from Plainville, and the first 4 eps are already on Channel 4, and there are another 4 episodes to come.
I'm so sorry, by the way. You were upstaged by Ebony. Who, I wondered. I'm sitting here and I'm broadcasting away, and I'm thinking, what the hell's that against my leg? What? Oh my God, is it a poltergeist or something? And I look down, and there's a mini schnauzer who somehow sneaked in and wanted to make a guest appearance, so I can only apologize. Okay, 4 minutes to go. Under
4 minutes. Well, I'll give you another box set for your summer holidays. If you're still about to go on holiday, download it from Channel 4. It's a German, a sort of Nordic noir. It's Scandi noir. It's not Scandi noir. It's Germany, but a lot of it is based in North Germany, which had been East Germany in the past. So there's
have to be Deutschland Schwarze.
There's an East German story. There's a bit of a Stasi story, but it's a contemporary drama. 2 police trying to uncover the surroundings behind 2 murders that happen right at the beginning of episode 1. And it looks like a paedophile has been murdered, and also rather weirdly, an elderly former pharmaceutical executive living in a care home. And it's really trying to untangle the mystery as to how these 2 things are related. But there's a big
not a true story. It's not. No. It's not true.
No. It's
Sounds fantastic.
It's a great German drama, obviously with subtitles. Very well written. The 2 coppers are great. One's got a great family backstory. The other is a woman who just lives in a motorhome. But they're really good people, really sort of authentic characters. And that is called The Marnau Murders on Channel 4.
The Marnau Murders on?
Yeah. Marnau Murders on Channel 4, 8 parts.
Okie dokie. I've just found 2 things. Talking about Late to the Bloody Party from the 1990s, and I've never seen it before. My favourite actress, as I may have mentioned, Nicola Walker. I think she's
yes, love Nicola Walker.
I would faint if I met her. I would absolutely faint away. And touching Evil with Robson Green. Never seen it. I vaguely remember. When I started watching it. Nicola Walker looks about 12. Very good. I mean, it's very, very good. And the other one that's been on, I've missed every series. I've only started watching it this week, binge watching it. You'll hate it. Phil will loathe it. I love it. The Witcher. Just great. The Witcher. I know it's not for you. I know you hate that sort of stuff. I normally avoid it like the plague. But, wowza, Ballad and Cowser. It's just great. Yeah. Huge fun.
I think it's top of the charts at the moment. So
number one on Netflix.
Are liking it.
With Henry Cavill. And Henry Cavill's so good. And I just sit there going, how can one guy be so handsome? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a curse.
It is. I don't know how you deal with it, Phil. I don't know how you do it.
It's fine. Sunglasses and a hat help. It dampens the effect it has on people.
Chantal, it's so lovely to have you back. You look fabulously well. You look so well.
We shall go to some screenings together soon. I shall be back in London by the weekend.
I look forward to it.
We're all sort of getting together for dinner before long, are we not?
Oh yes, and we're having dinner soon, which I'm very much looking forward to. I'm looking.
Me too. And have a great weekend, guys.
Absolutely.
Likewise,
everybody, and
thanks,
take
Chantal.
care, everybody. Have a good weekend yourself, and we'll be back on Monday with a very, very, very interesting guest on Monday,
as opposed to all the other guests that aren't that interesting.
Breast cancer. No, I only just was reached out by this guest who's going to be live from a hospital, I believe, talking about men's breast cancer. No,
don't miss it.
Okie dokie.
That's Monday midday. Bye-bye.
Bye, gang.